notifications on there.
It's been such a long time since Boston led the way. It's more than a feeling. It's Mike and Tom to start the day. The heart of Massachusetts should be freedom, justice, and liberty. Freedom led pilgrims to Plymouth Bay. Salem trials had justice too late. The sons of liberty spilled the tea, and then the redcoats spilled their blood. The shot heard around the world rang out from the Bay State. Boston strong and ready to defend. It's where revolution started and end. It's been such a long time since Boston led the way. It's more than a feeling. It's Mike and Tom to start the day. Quincy Market, Freedom Trail, Charles River, Boston Harbor, Bunker Hill, Griffin's Wharf, Fenway Park, Old North Charge. It's been such a long time since Boston led the way. It's more than a feeling. It's Mike and Tom to start the day.
Good evening. Good evening.
Hello. I was just rocking out to your opening jam there.
The more I listen to it, the more I love it.
I love it.
Perfect. So, can you introduce yourself to this type of our world over here?
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Jay Megan. You may know me as Nerdy Pink Panda on TikTok, and I have been following this Karen Reed case very closely on there, along with my other, sisters and brothers on TikTok. So that's me.
Yeah, you are probably, I don't want to say like I have fans, but you're like my first real fan that I've had on the show. Like,
oh, thank you.
I'm telling you, every time I see you come up on my screen, I just gotta watch it, and I love it. All the stuff that you put out, I understand. I get it. Like some people learn differently.
Right. And those are the people that I do try to target in my audience, like especially the ADHD, ADD crowd. Like we have a different way of processing and learning. And sometimes we also need to have that excitement factor, like throughout. Because sometimes it can get a little droll. It can get a little dull.
Not too long, and it's accurate, and I love it. I love all of it.
Yeah.
And listen, of all people I know, you can't do it by yourself. So can you say hi to Jake? Thank him for all the work he does.
Oh, thank you, Jake.
Oh, no, Jake.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were asking me to thank someone named Jake.
No, isn't Jake there?
My assistant Jake.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Actually, he's waiting for me to finish here. So I'll let him know. I'll see him right after this.
Thank him. Give him a shout out because I know it takes a lot of work. It does, and it's really. I mean, I have a lot of mods that do a lot of work, so I can't imagine what you have, and I know he's helping you. So for that,
actually, I mean, I mostly do it all myself. Jake does help me go through like my messages and stuff, but mostly I'd say it's 97% me.
I don't know how you do it because there's so much.
It can get overwhelming for sure.
You've been putting all this data together. I'm a data guy. I love the data. You've been putting it all together in one piece, right?
Right.
And it's a big whiteboard, right?
Yes, my murder board.
What do you call it again?
My murder board.
Okay. And it's got all the relevant information about the Karen Reed, right?
Yes. I've got the 24 hours of January 29th for sure, Pat. What I'm really focusing on is all the stuff that happened afterwards too. Because a lot of that in between stuff, like between like what the prosecution and what the defense is saying happened that day and the first day of court, there's a lot of stuff that happened in between there that even I wasn't aware of. So like it's just been a process to sift through all that information and find its relevance. And then when you also throw like the Turtle Boy stuff in there, it does get very convoluted, which is why I try to focus mostly on Karen. Like what's happening to Turtle Boy, I do believe is targeted and they are trying to silence him and discredit him and everything. 100%. But also at the same time, he's kind of dug his own hole with the way that he speaks and the way his particular brand of journalism gets out to the masses. So automatically you're turned off by him. And I do think he's at the point where he has started to hurt the case. And I think he has also kind of shifted into focusing on himself more than this trial, you know?
Yeah.
I do find that that's something that is a fine line that we as journalists sometimes need to step back and be like, what was the point of me doing this? And am I still working towards that goal?
I get you. I can see that. So when it comes to data, right? So
Hmm.
the prosecution gives you data and the defense gives you data, and then there's the data they're both trying to work off of. So how do you differentiate between what's what?
So a lot of times, like what I do is I compare the two arguments and just kind of see if they cancel each other out. A lot, and obviously, like I do believe that the Celebrate data was an old version, and that's why it didn't show up. And I also think that there was some tampering from Guarino. I think that's pretty obvious. I mean, look at the Sandra Birchmore case. If you talk to people who are anti Karen Reed that believe she's guilty, they'll always bring up the Celebrate stuff. And for me, I'm like, okay, but then there's another expert who said that what they did wasn't right. So those cancel each other out. And then if you try to talk about the Sandra Birchmore case and Guarino's involvement in that, which has been proven that he cannot find the data that is needed in a case or is explicitly burying it, that just right there shows that you can't believe anything that he says on the stand. But a lot of people don't follow the Sandra Birchmore case because they just don't care.
But
They thought for years, they were like, they heard people say, oh, it was a suicide, oh, it was a suicide. And now that things have started happening, they kind of can't comprehend that the two cases might be related in that way.
well, they are.
They
Uh,
are. They
And,
are absolutely.
and not just that, but she was pregnant. She had a baby.
Exactly.
That's a whole nother story. And that's the reason that he did what he did.
Well, and I'm sorry, there's no way you do accidentally miss 3,000 text messages.
No, they had more than that. It was thousands and thousands. But
Well,
how?
there was just 3,000 text messages. We're not even including
Oh,
instant
yeah, there was.
messages, like all that stuff.
How'd they miss it on her phone? He can delete it. She.
I say that they didn't even run it.
What
I
about the other devices? Because we knew she's had how many different phones? They grabbed how many of Turtle Boy's phones? 4 of his phones, 5, 6. She
Yeah, but
had
they
to have
ended up
phones.
turning over some of those
Older.
devices to
Yeah,
to the yeah.
but she has to have older devices also, right? Who doesn't have an
Right.
old phone in the drawer, right?
Right. No, exactly. And everybody knows cops have at least two phones. So were you checking both of them? Like, and the whole thing was just ridiculous because it's forensics 101, that autopsy. Like the fractured hyoid bone, literally there's an entire episode of criminal minds where they talk about hyoid bones and how if the how that's a clear sign of somebody squeezing and not just suffocating.
It's how it's the way it's broken. So like a wishbone, we'll say the way they know how it breaks versus pressure applied to it different ways. They already know that.
And not to mention, like the necklace, her broken necklace, clear sign of a struggle. Like there's no, it's 101, and so it's willful ignorance, and it just goes to show me that more of those people knew who Sandra Birchmore was from the jump.
So Michael Lank went over there. He was one of the first ones at. I think he was one of the responding officers that went to the apartment and opened the door. Right.
Yeah, I think it was Lincoln Good,
Yeah.
who were the main ones involved, but Kevin Albert was there that day.
Why would he need to be there again? He just, and you know what I find interesting? Kevin Albert went to the scene. He was at the station. He went to the scene. He was the highest ranking officer, right?
Mm-hmm.
He then came back and he didn't write a single report.
Yeah, it's funny how these people all act like they're pretty illiterate.
He self-dispatches himself from the station he was assigned to that day. He
Right.
self-dispatches and goes to a murder scene, crime scene in Canton, small little town, right? And he doesn't write a report. How?
Doesn't-
How? I again, there's some of the stuff I don't understand how.
Well, and like John Fanning literally writing emails to the medical examiner and the medical the what the chief of staff at the medical examiner's office being like, I need you to put me in touch with this medical examiner about Sandra Birchmore because she had been saying that it was not a suicide. And then suddenly she said it was a suicide after that on what was it? Like January 8th or something like that?
So
February 8th. Sorry, February 8th.
you agree that he investigates murders and bad, heinous stuff like that, right? That's his job.
It's supposed to be.
Why is he babysitting a jury? That's not in his job description anywhere. I'm pretty freaking sure.
No.
It's like, but he babysat. He was in charge of the jury. He got on the bus with the jury. He had access to their notebooks. He's the one that he kicked off a juror, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, he was the one who like went and said, "Oh, that juror was talking to people about the case." How? How would you know that?
Right.
Are you following these jurors? Like, do you have detail? And that's the only thing that, if it's even true, which I doubt it is, but that if it is true, then that means that he has details following every one of these jurors wherever they're going.
But I never saw a report about it. It was just I heard about it. I never saw the actual police report that incident happened.
No, he just literally told Bev. That was it.
And that's it. Tough. That's it. Bye bye. Go home.
Right. I'll never understand it. I really will never understand the blatant like law enforcement disregard for safety standards, protocol, all of that stuff. It's like you guys are some of like the oldest police departments in this country.
They get paid big top dollar too. They're making 250,000 a year.
Oh yeah. I remember when I was a kid, cops made like 45 grand a year. And now that we've given them an over bloated budget and just thrown everything at them, it's gotten out of control and there's no repercussions for them.
The chief just bought a semi trailer that they can shoot guns in, right? For the back of the police station. It's a portable shooting range, but it only shoots 380 rounds. They carry 40. Like, it's the next step up. So what they're going to train with isn't even what they're going to be carrying on the street with. But she just spent $500,000 on it. It needs its own electrical service and everything. Good luck with that.
And speaking of that, let's talk about the absolute lack of cameras or camera footage in the back of the Canton police cars. Because I know for a fact that each one of those cars has a camera back there. The camera that is literally activated by lights.
Right. When you hit this light switch, it activates the camera system, unless it's unplugged.
So why have we seen no footage from the inside of those cars?
We haven't seen. Remember Karen got in the back to warm up?
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything.
Oh, but then they switched their story and she was like, "Oh, she didn't tell me that in the back of the car. She told me that outside of the car."
Listen, any cop, if anyone ever said that and any cop heard that, you're getting cuffs. Let's go. You are going in the back of the car. Promise. And then we're going to go to the police station. That's what happens.
Right.
Like that
especially when there's a cop on the lawn.
On another cop's drive. So
they literally handcuff people and put them in the back of the cars to detain them while investigating like traffic tickets.
So here's the best part, right? So say you're a parent and you have kids over and they're all drinking because there's a storm coming.
Mm-hmm.
And all your friends there are drinking because there's a storm coming. And somebody walks in your house at 6 a.m. and says, "There's a dead body in your front yard." You don't question whether it's one of the kids that were drinking last night in your house, or one of the people who brought the kids, or someone.
Well, I did think she went in there and told them it was John, but they already knew. And I can tell you, okay, so my father was the assistant chief of the fire department in my hometown growing up.
Okay.
35 years as a firefighter. Never would he have stayed inside the house if there was a fire going on. Because this actually happened when I was a child. Well, not even a child, when I was a teenager. my friend came over. I'd snuck my friend over in the middle of the night to, partake in some herb, like, seniors in high
Kids,
school do.
kids, yeah.
And and as I was walking my friend out, I noticed that the sky was orange. The house across the street from us, Caddy Corner, was ablaze. Nobody out there. No fire department, nothing.
Just
And
up
I
and
knew I had to wake up my parents. I wake up my dad. He springs into action. By then, the volunteer fire department had gotten there first because we were out in like the little boonies a little bit outside of town. So the volunteer fire department had gotten there first, and we as a family all just went and watched the fire together on the front lawn.
yeah.
That's what first responders do.
Yeah.
What Brian Albert did is not normal. That was hiding.
Yep. People like Brian Albert are attracted to those lights. What's going on? Like he's the guy.
They
in
want
charge.
to insert themselves. They
Yes.
want to insert themselves.
Exactly. So, Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, and Chief Berkowitz, or medical leave. Yeah, he was on medical leave when he found the taillight. So did he on medical leave himself to activate himself to find the taillight?
Well, the real reason he was on medical leave is because he had just gotten out of rehab for Oxy. That's why he was on medical leave.
Oh, I thought
Yeah.
you had cancer.
Yeah. Good answer.
Oh,
So that's why he
right.
was out on medical leave. Because he had hurt himself, and then had gotten he had hurt himself while he was high on Oxy, which is why his arm was in a sling at one point.
Oh, Brian.
Oh no, the chief was in a sling too.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, that's
Mhm.
right. I remember that. Oh, God, right. Yeah, that's funny. So Brian Higgins leaves 34 Fairview, right? Now there's the three amigos. All
Right.
three of them. There's three, like you can't get if you pull that car over, think about that. You got the chief of Canton, you have
Mhm.
the guy who runs the ATF, the gang unit Boston, and you have an ATF agent. What you think that car's ever gonna get pulled over again? Like,
No. And then that just goes to show the power that they have, because I have several sources that were telling me that Brian Albert was actually Brian Higgins was stealing drugs from the locker room in Boston, and then Brian Albert was supplying them to his brother to sell out of the shop.
that was a rumor that what started. Jesus, got to be a good a year ago,
Right.
and it just doesn't want to go away. That one, I don't know why.
Well, the ones that I'll tell you, the rumors that I do believe. I do believe that one. Because I've investigated so many other police departments where that's normal, where
Well,
that happens all the time.
if you look up Brockton, right, this Brockton, Mass, the chief, like there were pounds of cocaine missing, not ounces, not grams, pounds of cocaine missing.
Brockton, Mass.
Chief
I-
Chief of Police Sprouse, and Spirows, I think Sprouse. But yeah, he made a pound and a half go away or something like that. A lot.
Mhm.
A lot.
And I will tell you, I also do believe the swingers rumors. I've talked to several people.
Eh,
I've talked to several people who have heard it firsthand from an Albert family member.
but that doesn't, unless they included Sandra in that. I don't know.
It's honestly okay. So it's actually a very common thing that happens amongst cops. The swingers life. I'm someone who is poly myself, and so I literally date multiple people at the same time. Like I'm not like into like the monogamy thing,
Okay.
But it's no different than like regular dating. I'm just dating multiple people at the same time. But a lot of people also cross over with that in the swingers world.
Okay.
And I'm not really a swinger, but I have like learned a lot of things, and I've gone to parties and stuff, and I've explored the options. And a lot of cops, a staggering amount of cops and their wives do swinging within the departments.
Where I get lost in that whole thing is, how does that relate into get out of jail free card? Into like are the people that are involved?
How it relates
Like
is that
Proctor, like Buchanan, like Fanning?
how it relates
Oh,
is John and Jen McCabe were sleeping together for 2 years. I've had two sources come to me with that information, like that were close, and like sources that I verified that these people were who they said they were. Like I don't want to give away my sources,
right.
obviously.
No, we don't want to know do
No,
that.
no, no.
So well, that's interesting. So him and Jen,
Yep.
it,
Which is also why
that,
Karen was so hesitant to go into the party, is because she was afraid that it was a swingers event.
okay, I
Because
can
you
see
got to think about the way they were all acting, and like her being like, "You're coming with me," and like trying to pull her Karen like to the car. Like Karen started like freaking out that it was a swingers event, and then that's why when she sent him ahead of her,
to make sure
because
it wasn't.
Brian Higgins um texted John at that point as they were pulling up, "You guys both coming?" As in, "Oh, are you guys joining this party?" And it freaked her out, and that's why she sent John ahead of her to go check the vibe. They're very quiet about this sort of stuff during the trial, because I think Karen is worried about her reputation in that way.
Oh, sure. I mean,
Obviously.
yeah. But wow,
Are things making a little bit more sense now?
they really are. I just didn't see it that way, and I just I don't guess I'm
And
naive.
now all those voicemails make sense, don't they?
Well, I listen. If John got accused of anyone like 5, 6, 10 years younger, right? If there's a limit, if he was accused of going after someone past his limit, and Karen saw that, I think that's the word she would use, adequately so. Like if he's going after a 19-year-old at the bar down in Cancun or wherever they were, like that's come on, John. You're a cop and you're what, almost 40 years old. Go after the
But
older
all of
people.
that stuff is just so unimportant to me. Like all of the Aruba stuff, I didn't
Right.
even watch those days of trial because they're so unimportant.
I agree with that. But
Like,
to a
yeah,
point though, but it does show Karen's um being genuine. She paid for the girl's hotel room.
yeah.
So
Karen
like
was a very generous person.
and I think that's kind of stand up. Stand up.
Honestly, I think
Yeah.
at their core, both Karen and John are good people. I think that they were having some trouble in their relationship because honestly, I think John wanted to be
Well,
more of a swinger, open relationship kind of thing, and I don't know if Karen was like okay with sharing him.
listen,
I think
if you
I've seen it
get
happen a
Jen
lot
McCabe
to a lot of
involved in
couples.
any of that, I think you got trouble no matter who you got involved with that.
Right. No, exactly. And that's the thing. I've seen this sort of open arrangement introduced into relationships when they're having trouble, and it never works out. And
Right.
that's what a lot of the tumultuousness between Karen and John seemed to come from for me, because there was a lot of insecurities and a lot of jealousies that aren't normally there 2, 3 years into a relationship.
Yeah, but was it that serious of a relationship? Because she lived at her place and he lived at his place, and she kind of would come here and then spend maybe a night here. Because it didn't seem like that they were together as a couple.
Oh,
Like
they absolutely were. Just like I'm a modern woman, a lot like Karen. Like I personally, I never want to get married. I like being able to like see who I want because I want to see them, not because I'm obligated.
Mhm.
Like a lot of like what Karen says, like I resonate with, and I
Okay,
think she just has a modern, very liberal point of view as far as relationships go. And so she's literally like trying to adjust to make it work with her boyfriend, but sometimes it's just not that,
right. So just
you know?
yeah.
And there's nothing, and
Wow.
they were together a lot during COVID. You have to remember that too.
Oh, that okay.
They were
Yeah.
in lockdown together,
Yep.
which is how they got together,
Gotcha.
you know?
Okay, so that's kind of putting some okay. Um, the tail light. Let's talk about the tail light.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, when a tail light hits somebody, right?
Hmm.
It breaks differently than if you took a screwdriver and tried to break it, or took a hammer to it, or whatever, right? However,
Oh,
it got broken. It breaks differently, completely different
yeah,
direction.
all of the taillight stuff is just such BS. Like, there's no humanly. I just don't understand people who are buying 36 pieces from an elbow. I'm like,
No,
these are vehicles literally designed to withstand a lot of pressure, as much pressure as possible.
listen, back in the old days, right? The metal bumpers would destroy a human body, rip a tear, shred everything.
Mm-hmm.
Not these new cars. They're all plastic, people. Like if you hit someone, you're getting an airbag. Like if you
Right.
hit somebody, you're getting an airbag in your face. It
Right.
never happened. And that's
Well,
why they say 24.2 because at 25, the airbags kick on, or the vehicle safety systems, whatever.
well, for me, like, especially like, because like the tail light. I mean, no matter how you slice it, there was no blood found on the tail light.
Nothing.
And yet we're supposed to believe that the bloody scratches on his arm came from the taillight. So it doesn't make sense. And their story doesn't make sense.
Remember they
No,
said she did a 3-point turn to start with?
well, did you ever see my video that I did on the key turns?
Yeah, the key cycles.
Did you see the one where I went like and I did the Trooper Paul Trooper Duper where Trooper Duper I compared his test to the key cycles in real time.
Yeah.
And I proved, oh, this is the key cycles, which also showed the AB brakes kicking in, the anti-lock lock brake system kicking in,
Yep.
all of that. And that's why they had to lie about which test it was. Because in the end, they were correct about 1162 being when Karen was driving the night that John was hit.
Right, but it did. She only kept it in drive. It didn't show the reverse.
Well, it shows that Karen has a lead foot, but at no point did she go fast enough, or at no point did she brake suddenly, like they were saying, because
Right.
they were trying to prove that the anti-lock brake systems wouldn't come on at that speed, and that's why they had to lie about it. And that's why for me, I'm like, I'm sorry, if you're a cop and you're lying about evidence on a stand, the person should be found not guilty automatically, and that's on you as a cop, and that's motivation to do things correctly.
Right. So looking at this whole case, where you're not local, right? Yeah. Where
Can't
are
tell
you?
by my accent.
I know. You're not. You're from around here.
No, I'm actually from Illinois. I
How'd you
live there.
get? How'd you get into Karen Reed? Just popped up on
Um,
your feed, or
well, I've
just
had my platform for a couple of years now. And the whole basis of my platform is injustice. Usually I focus on people of color and trying to elevate their stories. But
Mhm.
like I see this woman literally being
Railroad?
like
Yeah.
framed by
Yeah.
police. And I'm like, everybody needs to know about this case. And since I live here in the Midwest, I think it's so important for me to keep talking about the case because
Oh, absolutely.
nobody around here knows about
Absolutely.
it.
Really?
Zero, zero. I have yet to meet a single person who
Wow.
knows this case, even has even heard of this case.
See, we gotta try harder, everybody out there.
And that's the thing
Wow.
too is I think like a lot of people in the Karen Reed world need to start from the beginning again.
I think you're absolutely right. And the thing too is you can't necessarily listen to the prosecution and you can't listen to the defense. So where do they go, right? Like
Right.
where do they get the raw data? Because the raw data is going to tell them what they need to know. Let them make up their mind, not biased defense, biased prosecution. Let them right down the middle. Let them choose which way they go from there.
Well, and that's how I kind of got involved in this case. So when I actually didn't get involved in this case until after it had already started. And I just so happened to be flipping through on my news like channel or my news websites, and the Karen Reed picture of the arms came up as a thumbnail for the story. And I look at it and it says car accident. And I click on it and I look at it and I go, those are dog scratches before I
Yeah.
even read the article.
Yeah, this
Before I even read it.
Yeah, you knew right away.
Yeah, because Bonnie, hey, come here. Because I have a 70-pound pit bull.
I saw the one you did with that, the video
Yeah.
with that too. Great. And it was like perfectly matched up. Even the spacing was like
Perfectly.
right on the money.
That's
So
why I immediately knew that that's from a dog, not from a car.
I've
And
had dogs my whole life. Those are dog bites. I get it.
exactly,
I get it.
exactly. And even just the like dry scratches she left, I was like, that's exactly what that is.
Yep.
You know, my dog. I'm luckily I live with a dog groomer. Otherwise, my dog's nails would never get trimmed.
I was
um,
always afraid to do that with them.
I know. That's why I have a professional too. Thankfully, that I live with her.
So
Um, go ahead.
how is there no noise? My question, like, how is there no noise? If John got hit, right? All these people, none of them in the house heard it. Well, maybe the music was up, but like they didn't hear him on the front lawn as they all walked out. They had to walk by him. Every person in that house. If
I'll even one up you on that. The tire tracks. When both Jen and Matt McCabe say they saw tire tracks in the snow, but they didn't see them leading up to a body.
they're in an SUV that's up pretty high, man, looking down, you see everything, including like your buddy that you invited. That's right over there.
Well, I mean, like Matt McCabe said that he saw them out those tracks like in the middle of the party,
Yeah,
like after Karen had left. And I'm
out
like,
the
and you didn't
window.
see the huge person? Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Um, clothing, the clothing. Why is the clothing look the way it does? Have you seen clothing look that way after
I
being in through a scene?
I have actually, and I could say this like as a woman, we have had to wash blood out of our clothing many times. The
Okay,
reason that those clothes look like that is because somebody put his clothes in a washing machine on hot water.
okay.
That's exactly what it looks like.
That's what I think too. I think that those clothes were laundered, including the socks. I think they did to get the hair out too.
Well, and you've seen the little paper doll that I made, like of like the front and the back, and I made like stickers out of all the clothing and I put them
Yep,
together.
yep,
To me, it clearly shows that whenever his face was bleeding, that he was leaning forward,
yep,
and that's how it got on his pants.
yep.
And like, and that's why. So, and there's, oh, I can't wait until this next trial. Now that there's no damn excuse to not turn over the clothing and everything.
Right.
Oh, you know it's gonna be good. You know
So
they're gonna actually test for dog saliva. I mean, it's probably been destroyed by now at this point. Let's face it. They,
of course it has.
of course, it has, but at least we'll be able to get a clearer sense of the testing that has been done.
So here's my question though, right? Is
Hmm.
speaking about data, okay?
Hmm.
When you get GPS data, right? Like
Yes.
you get longitude and time. Am I wrong? Like
Uh,
every the
for
lat and longitude in the time that was recorded.
mhm. For
That's
like the ways or
for the Waze and for the Apple Health data.
well,
And yeah, any
so
GPS
Apple.
data, like they were all bouncing around the cell phones. Where's Jen's GPS data? Show me like the raw data. I didn't see any raw data, is what I'm saying.
Well, and that's the thing. When it came to Jen McCabe's phone, they were only given a very limited scope of what they could do. Um, obviously biased and everything. Um, but honestly, like I don't take the Waze data as anything because we have all been in a situation where we are in an Uber or a Lyft and the Lyft driver is like, "Sorry, I'm waiting for my GPS to catch up. Hold on," like or something like that.
It
Where
happens.
it happens. That's
Yeah.
why that's not reliable data to go off of. The more reliable data is the Apple Health, the Apple Watch. Like look at and the fact that they won't let the heartbeat stuff into the
Why?
in as evidence is ridiculous.
But it's see that's what gets me is it's evidence. It's evidence why they won't let it in because of bias. What the
But
jury
literally, Beverly
supposed to?
Cannoni has let that in. Like the literal trial that was before John's that she was covering, the one that ended up in a mistrial as well.
Yeah, Chestnut.
That
Oh,
literal one, she allowed heartbeat data in.
right.
And so it's like, wait, she let Apple Health go in that one. Like that's why Morrissey is all over. His fingerprints are all over this judge. And now she's getting a cushy promotion.
Yeah, and she's still gonna be in charge of the case. So even giving her a promotion, she won't leave because she's all over this. She owns this case. This is
She
no
owns this
one
case.
but her. No one but her.
No,
So
and
that's one good
that is
thing.
not normal. People don't. A lot of people don't understand that during pretrial, a lot of judges rotate before the case actually starts,
Yep. Yep.
and it's to keep judges from being biased. Like there's a lot of pretrial stuff, like getting subpoenas for phone data and stuff like that. Like a lot of that goes through different judges,
But
and
that's
then
all. Isn't that all
yeah.
process stuff that they do before it even gets to the judge? The judge doesn't need to know whether they want, you know.
Right, and they do that to keep any sort of bias because it's clear, like the reason that they've had to bring in more lawyers is because she clearly hates Alan Jackson. Even though I love him, Alan Jackson is daddy.
He's good. He's the man.
He's
Yeah.
so good. He's so good. I could watch him all day. I have a hard time on the days when it's Little or Yannetti. Just because the timbre, I don't know because with ADHD if you're this way, but the timbre of Yannetti's voice is not pleasing to my hearing receptors.
Listen, I've been near the man. He's very intimidating. David Giannetti is a man of just being. His presence. I can't explain it, but just being in. Alan Jackson's all right. Like he's a happy guy, as you know. He seems to smile. He's always happy,
Yeah.
happy. David Yannetti's all business. He's a different animal altogether.
Oh no, I respect and I love his work. It's just the literal physical like act of watching his stuff. And Alan Jackson is only brought in when he needs to try and trip people up because he's so good in the moment.
Yep.
Whereas Yannetti gets all of his ducks in a row beforehand.
Yeah. So
And then Miss Little, my thing with Little is I'm like, she has potential, but I feel like she needs to work on her presence.
I don't think she's used to being in Massachusetts. I think California might suit her a little more. I think maybe she's more structure, maybe orientated, because this is kind of the Wild West out here, because it's uncharted territory.
Oh yeah.
Everyone's like, oh my God, what is this? Every day there was something else.
Every day it was something else.
Do you think the second trial will get more coverage than the first trial?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because first off, people are like so much more invested now. Now just everybody wants to be right. Everybody just wants a verdict so that we can shove it in the other side's face. And that's not what this should be about. Like Jen Coffender or whatever her name is that likes to stick her nose in all of this.
Jen Coffin Dapper.
Yeah, I mean, I try to stay above all of that noise, like, because I want to keep my journalistic integrity. But, like, there is clearly a culture of fear out there, too, as far as journalism in the East Coast there. I've never seen anything like it before. I have never seen journalists so determined to stay in the status quo.
Like what?
Like clearly a lot of the other than Ted Daniel and Christina Rex, like all those other journalists slant towards John O'Keefe because it's a big cop town.
Yeah.
It's a big cop town and they're afraid of pissing off the cops. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Morrissey hasn't made some calls.
And that's exactly true. And what you see is what the reality on the ground actually is.
Oh, I'm very perceptive.
It's there. We're there.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it in the way it's written. I can see it in the way the languages that are used, and also how journalists like don't seem like they aren't hardballing anybody.
Nope.
And I'm like,
Ted Daniels and Christina Rex are the two that put the work in. The other people they fall.
Oh, all those softball stuff, the Dateline. Yeah. I'm surprised how Dateline did that when they literally were attacked at one point.
In the parking lot.
In the parking lot. Like, that's ridiculous.
Again.
By the Chris Albert crew.
Again, like, have you seen anything like this in your life?
I've never seen anything. And that's why I'm like, I say it all the time. This is the trial of the century that nobody's paying attention to. Because like I said, like over there on the East Coast, and even my sister, she lives on the East Coast. She lives in the DC, Baltimore, Maryland area. I'm actually going to go see her in a couple of weeks. And yeah, she never heard of this case until I said something.
Wow. Sounds
So
like a
it
bigger road trip than we thought, doesn't it?
yeah. And like a lot of my fans overseas are really invested in this case.
You know, that's I'm funny. We have a lot of people from Australia, a lot of people from
The
Ireland,
UK.
UK, a lot of UK, a lot of people overseas are really vested in this, and I'm like, figure, they're just watching to kill time. Nope. If
No,
they,
they're invested
yeah,
because
they're all in.
they don't have the corrupt like police system that we have here in America.
So
Like
how do we fix that? Like,
honestly, it starts with ending qualified immunity. It starts with a lot more oversight. It starts with taking away some of the firepower that these people have. And it also means approaching cops with the reality that they might be crooked. Just like any job. Like you don't blindly trust your accountant. You get a second opinion on every once in a while.
but yet a cop is, if you say one thing to one, it's fact. Doesn't have to be true or not. It's fact.
No, and that's the culture that basically they're breeding a culture of if you don't have my back, you will die.
That's true. That's
It's
actually true.
brainwashing.
Yeah. So you have no choice, but you have to fall on the line.
Well, and I'm sure you being from the area, you've seen Trial 4.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, a lot of what happened in that case is echoed here in Karen Reed.
Oh yeah.
Dirty,
No. Yeah.
dirty cops doing dirty things and planting it on the first person that fit the bill.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people have a hard time, especially people who aren't from Boston, who don't know the history of like what has happened, especially in recent years there. A lot of people who are outside of that have such a hard time readjusting their worldview that cops are bad that they can't comprehend that this could be true.
There you go. What do you mean you don't trust the cops? Like there's just like out west. I have a friend that lives I'll say Arkansas, like the really far west Arkansas, and it there's not much going on. So being a police officer, you kind of know everybody, and it's you take care of the job, you do the job. If you're corrupt, you're not there. They won't let you be corrupt. The
Right.
people won't let you. Here, it's a different animal. Like they almost expect you to because they are too.
I'll tell you the channel that I've become obsessed with, and I've promoted it a couple times on my channel, is the LV cops, who are the
Yes,
two Las Vegas cops. Yeah, who
they
have been
they
watching
came
this trial.
they came out to visit us.
They did.
Yes, they did. We had Karen did a fundraiser. They came out. They flew out here to visit us. I met
Ah,
them. They're wicked great guys. Gonzo.
I was gonna say, I'm like, a little part of me is like, I know your guys' channel is doing well because I've promoted your guys' channel. Like, and a lot of people got into like their stuff like the same way I did. So I'm like really happy for them that they're finding success because if you think about it, Las Vegas was the most corrupt place 60 years ago. And
Bingo.
they had to make huge systematic changes within the department. And now they are one of the tightest, most well rounded machines out there because they made those department changes. But when you have the people in power in charge of taking away their own power, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right on the money because me and one of them had a conversation about that, about how tight it is out there and how this doesn't happen out there. They won't let this happen to themselves out there. They self-police. And I said, well, that doesn't sound like it's a good thing. He says, it is. For whatever reason, it works when people are self-policing. But here, it's not that way.
I think it's just because it's been that way for so long. And it's also the mentality of the people.
Right.
Like it's the people who are so afraid of change because they're afraid of the unknown, as well as like the losing power. It's like you don't have to lose power. You just distribute it a little bit more equally and hold each other accountable.
It sounds easy, right? But yet, in Canton, there's flock cameras that cover every way in and out of the town of Canton, covered. But yet, we don't have access to them. We asked for it for the day of the 29th there.
Mm-hmm.
Who's coming and going? into the next day, into the,
My favorite moment of the trial is that moment when Brian Higgins realized that the FBI got his key swipes. The panic in his eyes, the fear flashing before his face,
he
like
didn't know what, he couldn't process it. You could see it. He was having it just didn't compute. What do you mean? Like,
that's
yeah,
because he knew his story and it wasn't the prosecutor's story because they would have told him about it. No, it was the story that he was trying to stick to amongst the people. Because Brian Higgins is not a smart cookie. He's not. He is not the brains of the operation.
nope,
I'm like, look at the man. I mean, he
no,
he's
he
unfortunate Danny DeVito.
no, he ain't it.
And
No,
I'm sorry, Brian Higgins seems like the kind of guy that was not cool in high school, and now he is clinging to the cool crowd.
because they look up to him because he got those 3 letters, ATF. No other reason.
Oh, except we've all seen that interview by now about the guy when someone denied him access to
The gun
the
store.
the gun store. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wrong. That cost that guy a lot of money.
Well, and I'll tell you, like that's a way that a lot of cops' mentality is. Like they
Yeah,
just don't. They want to skip around. They want to skip through their job because they think they've seen it all, they've done it all, and so they don't have to go through the motions for every single case.
just so you guys know, what happened is he was in a gun store on a Saturday or something, and a lady came in to buy a gun or pick up her gun because she had already bought it, registered it. She
I'll be
went to
right
the
back.
range with it. She qualified with it at the range, um, and she passed her firearm safety course. So the guy that owned the gun store was the one that was helping her find the right weapon, the right handgun for her, and they could come to an agreement. They went through a bunch of them. She tried a bunch of them. She liked this one that was her favorite, and she used it, and it was perfect, and it fit perfect. It was just everything that was perfect in it for her. And Brian walks in, the cool dude, and he decides that day that he thinks it's a straw sale going on, which means he thinks this girl's in there buying a gun for somebody else. So because he thought that, he's an ATF agent. He decided he shut the freaking store down, called in his people, and they came in and they, I guess, raided the store to make sure all the guys' paperwork was in order. And it's a small world because the guy that owns the gun store called his attorney, who happened to be Brian Higgins' old boss.
Mm. I didn't hear about that last part.
And they said, no, the ATF is not responsible for this. You are on the hook because you violated all these people's civil rights because you did a false search and seizure.
Hmm.
And ATF's not standing behind you because they had no reason to do it to begin with, because what he based it on was the fact he thought it was a straw sale going on when the guy had all the documents. This is the day that we tried this gun. She didn't like it. She tried like 6 or 7 guns that she didn't like. She kept going back to this one that she did like. And he had it all documented and everything. She took her safety course here and went to the range these days, and she did great on it. And oh yeah, so ATF's not standing behind Brian Higgins the day he closed that ATF
Well,
ATF raid store in Hyannis. He's on the hook personal for that one.
here's my thing: is I'm like, guys, why is Brian Higgins the only one we haven't had a sighting of since the trial? Like, nobody else thinks this is bizarre. That nobody in all of like Karen Reeddom knows it where he is.
Well, we keep hearing he's down the Cape, which is where he lives. And if that's the case, right? Where are the pictures of him? Like, he's got to go out sometime. He's got to go to a liquor store, right?
Right, right.
Where are those pictures?
Well, and part of me is like wondering if he's in hiding. If anything, I think he's turning witness. He's the weak link, clearly.
Would you trust what he would say?
I'm like, if he was turning witness, yeah.
Oh, that's even a stretch for me.
But I mean, again, he's not smart enough to come up with a better cover story. He's not. And he knows that he's not family, man.
Yeah,
He's not family. So
yeah,
who's going to be the one that's the fall guy if Karen Reed gets is found innocent?
yeah. And did he was down? He left everybody alone for a while, and they went and looking for him. Brian Albert. They sent Brian Albert looking for him. What's up with you, buddy? No one's heard from you. Remember? They sent him a text.
Oh yeah. I heard like only sighting I've seen of Brian Albert was that one recently where somebody was just in a grocery store and looks up and it's Brian Albert like growing out like his facial hair and wearing a hat and stuff. Like
We haven't seen pictures of Jen McCabe lately either. You hear she's rescuing animals now?
did you see that face? Is it guilt? Is it guilt for the life that they took?
There aren't enough animals in the world.
I am curious to see what that new filing is that's in relation to Chloe. We got a little taste. We got a little taste of it at the voir dire.
Because they talked about Chloe biting somebody else. That was interesting. Yeah. That was interesting that they brought that. They even brought it up.
And that's going to be pretty compelling for a jury. And that's the thing. That's the thing. Aunt Bev specifically was like, I don't want boards. Bitch, you ain't in charge of how I run this case.
The pitches.
Like I I never understood that when like during the opening statements when she was like, put the board down. We don't need to see that. Yes, we do. This is major evidence. Like, I'm sorry, he's dead. He's dead. Do you want us to help? Do you want us to help? Okay, then we have to look at the pictures. Okay, Bev?
It's funny because she knows, and she knows what the pictures are. And she knows the jury hasn't seen them, but yet she's still saying no. That tells you what you need to. Why doesn't she herself want them up there? What's the reasoning? What's her legal reason for that?
Well, and I'm also like, a lot of people process with visual aids. I mean, we all saw the 4th grade presentation that freaking Lally put up for closing arguments. And it's like, clearly that was effective for some people.
I didn't learn that way. I don't process that way. I can't. I sat through court. I sat in the courtroom with that man. He'll put you to sleep.
Oh,
it's
God,
bad.
yeah.
Bad. It's really bad.
I'll say at least I'm thankful for Hank Brennan for that case. In that case.
He's not sounding much better though. Like Hank
Brennan, at least he's more interesting.
Yes. So what about Karen's new lawyer, the guy that's doing this for free? What do you think of him?
Oh, is he doing it for free? Rossi?
Pro bono, isn't it? I think it's pro bono, yeah.
I didn't hear about that. I don't know a lot about what's going on with Rossi and stuff. Like I said, I try to filter out my content to like stuff that doesn't really matter. I mean, I'll occasionally throw them in, but at the end of the day, there are other creators out there who solely focus on this content. And, you know, there's a place for all of us out there. There's a place for all of us to succeed. And I have other stories that I report on. So the minor stuff I tend to let, you know, the other Karen creators do. Yep. You know, like Nurse Kim and Dave and, you know, the Boozy Beauty, you know.
Yep.
And even them, all of them have been so quiet. I haven't seen videos from them in months.
It's funny because I was checking them earlier today.
I have a group chat with Nurse Kim and a couple other girls. And I try to stay in touch with Boozy.
Nurse Kim was at the fundraiser. I met her there. What a wonderful lady she is.
Oh, I love her. Yeah. Yep. Like I always wanted to do more stuff with Nurse Kim, but like she got super hyper focused on her and Dave, and I was like, all right, you guys do your thing. Like that's fine.
Yep. What else? What about the shoes? Right? How do you miss a size 13 shoe?
No, those shoes were clean, man. I could tell by the pictures. Like, I think one of them was thrown out there, like I think one of them fell off when they were dragging him. And they found it later. And they cleaned it. Because also you can divisibly see in the voir dire, was it the voir dire? I think it was in the voir dire where we saw a picture of the shoes.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was the first clear pictures of the shoes that we'd really gotten. Correct. And there were obvious freaking drag marks on one of them.
So
The other one, not.
So here's the thing with the shoes, right? If anyone knows John, right? Like he only wore like new shoes.
I
And
know lots of sneakerheads, so I know
he
how
only
they
wore new socks too, because he wore his socks more than he wore his shoes. Promise you that, right?
right.
So his socks were even weird on his feet in the hospital. They weren't normal. Like if you put your socks on,
Oh.
if you look at your socks when you put them on your feet, and look at the socks on John's, they're sideways. Like
Okay, I'm gonna have to look at that because I didn't
yeah,
notice that.
socks are weird. The very that if you look at a picture of the socks, they say traction marks on the bottom.
Uh-huh.
They go on the very bottom of the sock. They're all rolled on the side and on the top, like they're on back.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I guess I just never even looked at that.
And he didn't wear big socks; he wore short socks, so they only went on one way.
Yeah,
Because if they're fit that way.
I'm like, unfortunately, I do wear like short socks myself, and they do tend to get little screwy throughout the day. So, as much as I wish it was a smoking gun,
yeah,
it could arguably get twisted, like if the shoe flew off. But for me, he wasn't going fast. Like the way, if they're trying to say that he was hit by a car with such force he flew out of his shoes, and yet none of it hit his body, it doesn't make sense.
Listen, if you were moving 20 miles an hour and you went onto the grass, you're gonna have grass stains. It's gonna happen. You're gonna roll because you don't just go and you just don't fall and land like a bird on the grass. You go across. You skip.
Except the grass was only on his butt. The grass stains were only on his butt.
I would think you'd want to tend to roll at 20. Jump out of a car at 20 miles an hour and tell me how it works out for you.
Well, and did you see my video where I showed that very clearly there was a square cut out in that little brown spot on the bottom of his ankle?
Yeah. Why?
What? It was way too big for a medical examiner, like, because a sample, a lot of people are like, oh, they cut squares to do samples. First off, there were none of those squares taken out of any other piece of clothing that we could see at the trial there. So they just did it for the one spot they didn't test.
They only need a couple threads. And
they only do a 1 inch by 1 inch square when they do that. Because otherwise any more and it compromises the evidence.
4x4. Least,
yeah, right? it was like that.
Yeah, it was noticeable.
It was noticeable, and that's why I made the video on it, because I was like, hold up. Because we've never gotten any answers as to what that was.
Yeah, we don't get much answers of anything, do we?
No.
I mean, the whole thing in itself is how we don't get any answers, right? Because, I mean, we just ask.
Right. Well, and like I said, like the fact that there is no blood on that taillight, the fact that the pink DNA thing, I was like, to me, I'm like, oh, that's clearly from like an animal treat, like whatever food they were feeding Chloe.
My thought on that is the dog was excited because everybody was in the house. So what do you do to keep the dog quiet? You throw it a pig ear, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's where the pig DNA come from, is from the pig ear.
Well, and what also a lot of it might be is so a lot of people are really confused about what transfer DNA is, and it's it bothers me so much. People think that DNA and transfer DNA are the same thing, and I'm like, it's not. This pillow now has my transfer DNA. This now has my transfer DNA. That's what transfer DNA is. So very clearly, after when they washed all this stuff, because remember, they said that there was transfer DNA from like 3 to 4 people on some parts of it.
Yeah.
Those are the people carrying him.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense too. How did the Sally Port video get entered into evidence when it was clearly doctored?
Oh, well, first off, they were like, oh, we just found it. No, you didn't. It was a, no, you didn't just find that. You've clearly had it for months, and you were trying to blindside the defense during the trial, which obviously should have basically thrown out the Sally Port, in my opinion, because what kangaroo court allows video evidence like that without any verification? I'm so excited because Marty Weinberg, his whole specialty is digital crimes.
Well, good luck
Like,
with that. He's got a whole job ahead of him now, man. Just that
oh,
one
I'm so
charge.
excited to
Good luck.
find out like all the evidence that they were withholding. If anything, this mistrial was the worst thing that could have happened for the prosecution, and they know it.
Because they can get called out even twice.
Right. Right. Well, not even that. Now, anything that they said in the first case that they're going to be able to prove wrong in the second one, whether it's the clothing DNA, whether it's when the videos, like I've been trying to figure out the videos for a long time, and I have a theory that they changed the timestamps by changing the
Internal clock.
the time zone.
Okay.
So it would still read a certain time, but be in the wrong time zone.
Yeah, but that just gives them four. That gives them what, the most 4 hours. No, they
Right.
could go. They could do more. Actually, they could go over Russia. No,
well,
really,
and
you can set them to be up there, up to that. Like,
and we've all seen that there is no video as well as of whatever they backed out of the thing. And that's the thing. If they were like, "Oh, we were missing this video and now we found it." First off, where did you just find it? Second off, when you tamper with digital photography like that, it's not like old photography where like once it's gone, it's gone. They redo it over the old footage, and that's why I was able to find Higgins in those like as a ghost in some of that footage. And if I could find it with my bare naked eyes without any computers, man, we're gonna find some fun stuff.
do you think they'll let all this stuff come out, or do you think they'll keep hiding the corruption?
Who's the defense or who?
The prosecution, like the state of Massachusetts, because
Oh,
they have a vested interest to keep this all under wraps and keep their job.
they'll never admit it. They will never admit it till Morrissey is finally like arrested.
That
And
bad.
then everybody will be trying to save themselves.
So it has to come to that. They have to take him down first.
Well, and I wouldn't be surprised if the reason that the FBI has not made any moves right now is because they're gathering all of this evidence for during for after the second trial.
So I know when they're doing an investigation, and if they say they pick someone, pick Gemma McCabe, for example, just
Mhm.
to use her as an example. They'll use Colin. If Colin was there and Colin committed a crime and Colin spoke about that crime today, FBI has 2 years from today. If Colin waits a week and mentions something about that crime, they have 2 years from that time on. So the window the window gets pushed as long as the suspect
Oh, I
is
gotcha. I
the
got what
more
you're saying.
so it keeps the evidence window. They can keep gathering evidence and evidence and evidence almost forever.
Okay, I got what you're saying. And that makes a little bit of sense. Because at the end of it, it's all basically conspiracy at this point, and so conspiracy falls under different sort of laws than straight up crimes.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah,
I feel like yeah.
and that's
Okay.
the whole thing too. Is like the FBI doesn't do like murders. They don't do that. They do corruption.
Right. And that's the
So,
thing is that people don't understand about our judicial system is very rarely does the federal overstep and come into an investigation until it's too late. Like
right.
they have to let the crimes be committed before they stop it from going any further. And think about it, the FBI literally handed all the evidence to prove Karen's innocence. It's just the jury was
Not allowed to hear
so
it.
over the jury was so no, they were allowed to hear it, but they were so overwhelmed with information, which was the prosecution's plan all along. They were trying to bury the fact that John could not have been hit by the car. An independent, for free, freaking source Set
Yep.
that on the stand.
Yeah. The Aka people.
The Aka.
Aka. They were great.
I was gonna say, I'm like, I am losing my voice over here, so I don't have much more time.
That's
I
fine.
think I just wanted
Well,
to give you a little warning.
listen, when we gonna come out? When's the board gonna come out? When's that gonna have
The
its own
first of the
debut?
year. After the
Okay.
first of the year, I'm gonna restart my whole series from the beginning. So hopefully, like, I can um I can get to the point where all of you guys can just start sending like the first episodes, 2 episodes, 3 episodes to people to get them intrigued.
Wonderful.
And I want to come from a neutral standpoint too. Like, we all know my standpoint at this point, but I do want to come at it at a very neutral way, the way that I approached it in the beginning,
Okay. Okay. Well,
because
listen,
everybody deserves to make up their own choices. You
I
know.
I can't wait for that. I really can't because I look forward to all your content. Like you just put out great content, flat
Oh,
out.
thank you. I
You've
really
been
appreciate that.
the first one that I've wanted to like. I want this. Yes, this is good. So thank you for being here. I
Thank you for
appreciate
having me.
everything you do out there for Kieran Reed, and um, you know, don't be a stranger, please. You're
Absolutely.
more
Hopefully
than
someday
welcome.
maybe we'll all meet in public, or in public.
You'd be surprised about that one.
In person.
Yeah, we'll figure that one out.
You know what? Whenever Karen Reed gets acquitted, we can all just have a big old celebration in Boston.
Hopefully soon, right? Hopefully soon.
Soon. Soon.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank,
Thank you so
thank
much
you
for
so
having
much.
me. And Nerdy Pink Panda, if you don't follow me already.
We share your stuff all the time. They'll get you links. We got you.
Love it. Thank you.
Bye, dear.
Bye.
All right, guys. That was awesome. I love her. I think she's just all that. She's got the data. She puts it out in a way that even I can understand it. She's just been I love it. I love it. So, that said, thank you all. You'll have a good day. You'll have a good night and have a great weekend. Um, yeah. You have a good weekend. Thank you all. Thank you, Lisa. Bye, everybody.